Hello, dearest listener, and welcome to Journeys Through Middle-earth, a podcast about the road we walk through the Lord of the Rings Online. I'm Law, a returning traveller, making my way through the LOTRO, one quest, one update, and one step closer to Moria at a time. Each episode, we take a look at what's happening in the game, the weekly sales and update, my progress in the Road to Moria series, and a bit of advice or reflection for anyone joining the journey, whether you're new, returning, or have walked these roads for years. So wherever you are in Middle-earth, settle in, and let's see where the road takes us today. Let's start with the wider world of Lord of the Rings Online. As of recording this podcast, the new update 46.1 was released. We got wind of this about a week ago, and they finally put out a post yesterday, I believe it was. Now, it's a more smaller update, I would say, at least for someone like me who is nowhere near the latest expansion. But the one thing that I want to bring to your attention, dear listener, is the brand new first phase of the scaling UI, which we have been begging for years. Works on the login screen, the character creation and selection, loading screens, and the map window. Scaling is now also currently supported for the cursor and more than 50 individual UI elements and a global UI setting. I've not been able to get into the game just yet because the servers are still down as I'm recording this, so I'm looking forward to messing around with it and playing with it. Something else I would like to bring to your attention and discuss is the letter to players that we had from the dev team last month. If you are new to Lord of the Rings Online, unlike other MMOs, generally what happens is that we get a development update that reflects the first 2 quarters of the year, and then we'll get another one later down the line. There are some very interesting things happening. In Lord of the Rings Online. The first quarter, which is this quarter, funnily enough, we get update 47, Folly of Kings. We're getting raids as well, bug fixing, and we're also getting the quality of life update, which the scaling UI seems to be part of that update. What baffles me, my dearest listener, is the quarter 2 update. Whilst it's update 48, A Glorious Hunt, that is not what interests me. We are getting Rivendell housing now. I have been in this game for a long time, on and off, and I have vied for Rivendell housing so much, so very excited to see how they're going to do that. Also, there's also a new zone that's going to be coming out, and a new 6-player instance, and it's also the 90th anniversary update. 19 years of Lord of the Rings Online. There are not many MMOs that can say that. This is just putting Lord of the Rings Online in a more modern state. Slowly but surely in a more modern state. And I don't see many bugs. I don't see many issues. This team takes their time, and I appreciate that as a player of MMOs and a lover of this game. From the world itself to the store and weekly deals. Now, normally there is a store and weekly deal on, but by the time I'm recording this, dear listener, that code will have ran out by the time you hear this. So when the new podcast comes out, I will endeavour to make sure to bring that to your attention and ensure that you stay up with your weekly codes. Because, dear listener, these deals can help travellers prepare for the road ahead, which is always important. And speaking of the road ahead, we should get back to the road itself. What this podcast generally is, it is a little bit of a new segment, a little bit of helping out the new players, but this is primarily a podcast to help catch people up on my series that I have brought out. It should be out by the time this podcast goes out, but if it is not, it is called The Road to Moria. A little bit of a backstory on this. I have played this game since Shadow of Angmar, which is the base game of Lord of the Rings Online. The Mines of Moria was the first expansion of Lord of the Rings Online. And I played the game all the way up to Moria. I have never been in Moria, dear listener. I know, for the returning players and the long-time players, shocking of me. And every time I have tried, I have stepped off the path for one reason or another. So this is why I've made this series. This is why I made this podcast. So I can reflect on those zones that we'll be going through and reflecting on Moria itself and all the other journeys ahead. So what I want is for you to think of this as opening my travel journal partway through the prologue, and I'm catching you up before we walk the next stretch of road together. Before the video series you'll see is where I am at currently. I started this character on streams during the Jingle Jam, which is a charity stream that happens in December with the help of the Yogscast. I wanted to play that game during that time to bring a sense of nostalgia, and I just fell in love with the world again. And this character is level 16, so it's quite a far ahead for the tutorial we're playing, because if you don't know Lord of the Rings Online or a new player, you have tutorial zones. Archet, if you're a human or a hobbit, which is the vanilla experience, and you have the secondary tutorial, which is Before the Shadow. I'm playing the Before the Shadow because I've not done Before the Shadow before, and it is more modern, it is more streamlined, it is more in line with how Lord of the Rings Online is developed now. If you are new, I would recommend that you just do the normal one for now, because it links it all together. However, I have been following a guide, which I'll mention later. It's quite useful. And I went around from Before the Shadow. I went back to the Shire, and we have decided to level up there. But the story so far, we have arrived in Swanfleet, a quaint little village just on the border of Eregion, which is near Isengard. We, for whatever reason, are spending the night there to rest on our travels. We met a ranger called Melendir. During the night, the village was attacked by Uruks. We defend this village, and we get to know the townsfolk. We meet key characters like the blacksmithing dwarf and the little lad known as Tegwin. We help Melendir scout out the local area. One of them includes a small camp of travellers, wildlings, I believe, maybe dunlendings. We help them, we get to know them, and they honour us by allowing us into their encampment. We also meet the stores, hobbit-like people. We also meet the stores, the hobbit-like people in the mountains. And then we return back to Swanfleet. We return back to deliver blades to the blacksmithing dwarf so he may reuse them, and we can defend this village. And they can defend themselves when we leave. It is then little Tegwin goes missing, as he is vying for adventure. We find him in the nearby swamps. And there we rescue him with the help of Melendir. Tegwin relays some awful news that the Uruk are searching ancient elven ruins in the nearby area. Melendir takes Tegwin back to Swanfleet and orders us to meet with his brethren, his Dunedain brethren, in the nearby ruins. Now, the brethren are not too happy about Melendir, for he betrayed his oath. But they told us to go see for ourselves about these ruins. And so we have left to go to these ruins and found a lady elf a she-elf, protecting the ruins and found that the Uruks have overthrown them. We aid her in vanquishing those foes, and we have came to learn that the Uruks are searching these ruins specifically for any jewellery. And that is where we left off. Now, you would have seen this if the video hadn't corrupted. So I've now caught you up in this podcast. That is where we stopped for camp. And that is where we will begin when that video goes up eventually. Before we part ways, I wanted to share something for fellow travellers, specifically the newer. I use a website called Massively OP. They have a leveling guide. That's how I managed to level up my character, get a few knickknacks along the way that will help me. I recommend this for returning players, especially if you know the story of Archhead or the other zones, the Elven zones. But if you're a new player, like I said before, I recommend that you just stick to the first tutorial and play through it like normal. And I implore you, always keep this in mind. Lord of the Rings Online is not to get to the end. It is the journey. It's slower. It's story focused. It is not like other MMOs where you have to get to the end before the game begins. No, the game begins as soon as the game begins. And something to kind of reflect on is that every traveller's journey looks different. And that's perfectly fine. You play the game how you want to play. This is just my advice. And I'd love to hear from you, fellow travellers. For this week's episode, I'd love to know, when did you start playing Lord of the Rings Online? Are you a returning player? A newcomer? A potential newcomer? Or have you been wandering Middle-earth for years? You can send your thoughts, your stories or questions to all the links down below. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can comment down below and I'll try to feature some responses in future episodes. The road is long and every traveller has a story, and I'd love to hear yours. And with that, our stretch of road today comes to an end. We've caught up a bit on where we are in the road to Moria, talked about the state of Lord of the Rings Online, and shared a little advice for our fellow travellers. The road is already moving and there is so much more ahead. But until then, dearest listener, keep your pack light, your blade sharp, and your heart ready for the road ahead. And I'll see you on the path.